One of the things that I like to say is that peak performance aging starts young. I don't want to mislead people. There's a lot of studies that show, even for like totally sedentary late 80s, you haven't moved in 30 years, right? You haven't moved since you're 50. Even interventions at that point, like even if we get you from totally sedentary to you're now walking up the stairs instead of taking the elevator, right? Those sorts of interventions, you can still make big differences in people's lives really late in life. But for a couple of different reasons, there's physical stuff that it's better if you start younger. Most importantly is, I have to introduce a term, which is cognitive reserve. So if you want to hold on to your cognitive skills, or you want to stave off cognitive decline, if you want to stave off Alzheimer's and dementia, this was what started to happen back in the 90s. We started to get these group long-term studies of aging, and they started to, in certain study groups, most famously the Sisterhood of Notre Dame. This was a very long-term aging study. All the sisters not only had annual checkups and blood work and cognitive tests and all this stuff, but they donated their brains to science afterwards. And they started to notice when they were autopsying the brains of sisters in their 90s and their 100s, people who were incredibly active, had full like teaching schedules in the sisterhood and did all this stuff. They opened up their brains and they were filled with tangles and plaque, Alzheimer's everywhere, dementia. And yet none of these women exhibited signs of cognitive decline. What the hell is going on became the next question. There are a number of answers to that question, but first and foremost is, if you want to stave off cognitive decline, you want neurogenesis, the birth of new neurons, and you want synaptic plasticity, those new neurons to form a new neural net. One thing to know about the brain, redundancy is built into everything. The brain never does the exact same thing twice in a row using the exact same neurons. It's really rare. The brain likes to recruit other neurons and back things up. So it turns out cognitive reserve are these new neurons and these diffuse neural networks. And if you really want to stave off cognitive decline, you want them in the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that's right back here, because it's the part that's most vulnerable to degradation. Turns out that two things that are stored in the prefrontal cortex that are your best defense against cognitive decline are expertise and wisdom. And this is not 100%, but think of it as wisdom is like all the emotional learning that comes with an experience, the emotional intelligence, whereas expertise is sort of like the factual learning that comes with it in experience. That's not perfect, but it'll get us there. The expertise and wisdom form these really big diffuse networks all over the prefrontal cortex. But if you want true expertise and true wisdom, all the scientists who have worked on this the most, everyone, if you read their books on the subject, you read their papers even, they all say the same thing: start young. Start building up expertise and wisdom in the 20s and the 30s. Make these networks as robust, as thick as possible. And you pointed out some of the physical stuff. You definitely want to start in your 50s, but as you and I both know, it is a whole lot easier to start exercising younger and continue than it is to totally walk away from it. Because if you've walked away from it for 20 to 30 years, you can come back for sure, but it's a slower process, right? You want to do some stuff along the way to make sure you're not going to get hurt as you come back to your activity.